Okay, so good morning, everybody. I'm here at your art gallery in the Hialeah campus. It's, as your professor was just telling you, it's a great space. I couldn't be luckier to show my art here. So you're most welcome to contact me or the professor to come in person, because art is supposed to move people, but sometimes it's hard to see if you just see it on a screen. So you're most welcome. I'm going to be my art is going to be showing here until July 31st. So you have a month and a little bit to come. So my name is Evelyn Politzer. I'm a visual artist. And I mainly work with soft materials. Usually when you say you're an artist, they would only associate you with the painter, so they would tell you, how do you paint? And if I need to say, how do I paint with yarn. Yarn, thread, and fabric is what I work with. That, for me, constitutes a fiber artist, and everything started for me when I was a little kid. I'm from Uruguay, in South America, and I always say that in Uruguay, wool was one of the materials most readily available and cheaper. So that's how I really started playing, and I use a lot of techniques. I don't use brushes, but I use knitting needles, crochet hooks, looms for weaving, any type of fiber technique that you can recognize, I use it. I don't use it in a regular way, I would say. For example, these drops are part of my installation. It's called Every Drop Counts. And these are all hand knit. If you associate hand knitting, you always think about a sweater. Well, I must confess that I never finished knitting a sweater, but I know how to. So, as I was telling you, this is an installation called Every Drop Counts, and it was mainly inspired by the environment. There are many things I want to communicate with this installation, especially here since I moved to Miami. There are so many things that go on around water. Most of the time water is flooding, and sometimes I also hear that they have been dry seasons also. But one of the metaphors I love the most about this installation was a little kid that when she saw this installation, she told her mother, "Oh, it looks like the sky is crying." And so since then, I took that metaphor for me, to think about and to transmit what's going on with the environment. And as you can see, yes, okay. What I love about this installation, that's why it's called an installation, is that it's very malleable. This has been installed in a great way that you can walk through, and it has been very inspiring here at the college. There are so many ideas and so many different creative juices that go through when you come and see it in person. Shall I continue with the exhibit? Yes.
That would be great.
Okay. So when you ask me what inspires me, there are a lot of subjects that inspires me. The environment is one of them, and sometimes I do try to use some political art facts for my art, but I always try to give it like a sense of hope. That's why this wall, even though it's a wall, it's green because that's my sense of hope for the future. And this piece is called A Ray of Light, because that's how I would like walls to be. And this wall, and you see another that touches upon the same subjects, is a great example of what I make, because it was hand knit, brick by brick, and then crocheted all around each brick. And then each of these bricks were applied to a piece of fabric, a linen fabric, because, well, that's another thing of my art, that there are many people that call it slow stitch, because it's really very time consuming and very like process oriented. That's one of the things I enjoy the most about what I make, because I can really sit down and hand knit, as I told you, brick by brick forever. And but it's always with the fiber arts, it's always about the materials and the techniques, and then how do you put down your ideas together. And at this point, I think both things are important for me. But so that's why I enjoy so much the materials I work with and the technique that I choose for each piece. Okay, so this is my newer body of work, and this is really painting with yarn. So every time, if anybody would ask me, "Are you a painter?" Now I can say, "Yes, I'm a painter." Even though, as I told you, I use materials. This is mostly hand dyed from my country, from Uruguay, where there's an organization that gave women that live in rural areas the chance to hand dye the yarn from their own sheep. And I really feel a connection there, first of all, because they're mostly women, the ones that hand dye the yarns, and also because of the process it's made. It's all hand dyed. You can see the difference between the tonalities or the shades of in one strand of yarn. I can show you later. In one strand of yarn, you can see the different colors that were dyed by hand, no? And that's what inspires me so much about the process. This is another good example of how slow my art is. This was applied bit of yarn by bit, strand by strand, and then they were embroidered through the fabric so they don't come off. So if anybody would think that, I'm guessing same as you, if you write a poem or you write any type of literature, that if you can do it like in 2 seconds, wrong. Each of these pieces took me like maybe a month and a half to make. So that's reality, but again, I enjoy it very much. This is another phase of what I make that it's a little bit more utilitarian. I have a training also in interior design, and interior design is something totally different. Oh, I forgot to mention that I'm finishing my MFA, my Master's of Fine Arts in Visual Arts. So I guess I have both sides of the art and design worlds in my brain, and I needed to work with both. As I told you, this is more like the design part where you make more utilitarian things, and because you're usually solving some type of issue or thing. This is called the yarn bomb. It's something very popular in the art, in the fiber arts world. I don't know if anybody saw, but the example took to another edge was I saw it in Mexico City, a bus, huge bus that was all yarn bomb with yarn. And so this is more my, as I told you, my utilitarian or design side, a part of my brain. Do you want to? Okay, let me show you this, because I'm sure this is like your notebooks when you write and you erase and then you try again. And these are all my sketches that in order for me to end this with these three end pieces, I did a lot of sketches, except that sometimes I do sketch with a pencil and color pencils or even watercolors, but usually you have to make whatever after it's going to be your final product. So these are my sketches, the previous sketches. This was at the beginning of the pandemic that I didn't, there were no supplies available. I didn't know what to work with, so I went out. I have a bougainvillea flower, and I took the bougainvillea flowers and I just colored the canvas with the bougainvillea flower. And oh well, there's different sketches as you can see. This I'll tell you later if we have time. How are we doing with time? Good? Do you want to ask me any questions?
Victor, how are we doing time?
We're good. The class ends at 20, so we have a good 12 minutes, so that we still have time.
Okay, good. So another thing I love about this place, other than the huge modern gallery that you have here at your college, is the way they displayed it. The curator, Noor, came up with the idea of, because she came to my studio and she loved the mess I have in my studio. So she told me, I want to reproduce your mess in the gallery. So this is a mess that it's less messier, but it's still a mess. And this is one of the pieces that I was referring to earlier, that it's a little, yes, it is political, but and again, it had a sense of hope. This is really called walking through brick walls. And so what I did is I mounted all the handmade bricks in almost like a see-through copper mesh. So again, it has a little hope. It's lighter than a real wall, because I really wanted to express that you could walk through the walls. We couldn't mount it in this gallery like away from the wall, but it's really meant to be walked at that point. And this is something funny, but let me get back to here if I have time. This is the way I was telling you about the hand-dyed process. This is a skein of yarn that you can really tell that they are, first of all, all of them are different. So you can really tell that whoever was hand dyeing it by hand, I say she because it's mostly women, but put a little bit more orange with yellow here, a little bit more red here, and this is, you can't reproduce it. That's why I enjoy the fact that it's not made by a machine. It's not industrially produced or dyed, and it doesn't look the same. They're all different. Okay. This is the whole wall that is the same subject about women's issues. This was one of the I would say the first installation also I did about women's issues. This was very serious. If you wanted to talk, I wanted to talk, and maybe more than talk, I wanted to let go of the sadness of breast cancer. And so this is how it all started. I started also doing different color yarns because I wanted also to touch upon the diversity of the disease, you know, that can anybody and everybody. And but again, it was made like also like a warning about not so much as a warning, but as a reminder for us to check our breasts, and more like educational purposes. And then after I got a little bit better about breast cancer, I still wanted to talk about women's issues, but this is something that has a little humor. It's called, oh, sorry, I forgot to tell you, this installation is called BFFs, it's Breast Friends Forever. And this one is called Free to Hang. So it has a little humor about women getting older, but the freedom of expression that comes with getting older. So not everything is bad, and there is always a sense of hope. And shall we talk about the last piece? This is a piece that when the pandemic started, I felt lonely in my studio, so I called a couple of Fiverr artists, and we formed a group called FAMA, Fiverr Artists Miami Association. And this started a year ago, and it just kept on going and going, and now we have almost 100 members. And this was the first project we did for FAMA. The first project was last year. We wanted to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the women's vote here in America. So this piece is called Past, Present, and Future Connections. And it has 36 stars, abstract stars, that were used in order to pass the 19th Amendment for us women to get our right to vote 100 years ago. And I don't know if you have any questions, or I can keep on going, talking and talking.
This is an amazing exhibit. It's so the work is so beautiful. There are comments in the chat happening now from the students. They really, you know, this is great. Camila in particular is referencing admiring the art, but also mentioning that her mother is a survivor of breast cancer.
Right.
I think the power of art to inspire is one of its main functions, and I think what you've created is very inspiring. Students, please, let's throw some questions into the chat. So if you want to ask anything, type it into the chat. I don't mind reading it out loud once you post it. So let's have some questions. I had a question that I think you kind of answered, because I wanted to ask about the power of art during times of crisis, and I think you answered it when you were referring to that you created FAMA and you created a group that worked together. Maybe speaking personally from this, you know, how do you feel art functions? How does it help us in moments of crisis, like a pandemic, you know, like what we're going through?
You don't know how much. Yeah, we had a FAMA meeting, gathering here 2 days ago, and everybody was so thankful. Usually, you know, people forget with their busy lives, they forget to thank. And everybody was so thankful about giving people a place where to talk about art, where you can be heard, where you speak the same language. Because as I told you before, being an artist, it is kind of a lonely life, because you're in your studio, you work, you focus, and having this kind of like socially engage with people that speak the same language is so important. And once we gather, we have, as I told you, here we were celebrating the 100th anniversary of the women's right to vote, but we always have different projects that are coming up. So that makes people think about their projects, come out of their daily problems or stresses or whatever that is that they're living, and through art, art is a total de-stressor. I don't know if you use that word.
Mm-hmm.
helps you relax, helps you focus in something positive, and helps you communicate in the end, instead of through a positive way, no?
Excellent. There's a question here from Camila. The question is, do you have any ideas for your next visual arts project? And do you have an Instagram?
Yes, I do. Yes and yes. My Instagram is just my first name and my last name, Evelyn Politzer. And the idea, so what's been happening, another surprising thing, is that, and I don't know if I have time, but I would like to address the power of that a group has. Because since we created FAMA, we've been having calls from all over. And now, for example, in 2 weeks, there's going to be an opening of only fiber artists at the Frank Gallery in Pembroke Pines.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's another opening in October in Palm Beach. Then there are things coming up all the time. There's another gallery, the Camp Gallery, that has supported FAMA since day one. And we have an opening, the Camp Gallery, she has OVR, online viewing room, and an in-person opening in October, and that is going to be a quilt. Like every artist is going to make a quilt about that one, about like uniting, about things that, you know, when we got together, it was exactly after the election, and the country was so like confronted, let's say. So we wanted to make the point in, as you say, art can get people together for positive causes. So that's my thing coming up.
It sounds exciting. I mean, it's something that I really like thinking about the scope of what you've created. I think for our students, it's really great to see, the richness of the art in our community. I think that people have a preconception that art is only painting, but here we're looking at a different media, and how effective it's able to translate emotion, and that's the power of art. And I appreciate you taking the time to talk to the students and show your art. I really hope that the students make it out to the campus, if they're comfortable to make it out to the campus. Again, we are following safety precautions on campus, so and to see the exhibit in person, because I'm looking at this here from my computer screen, and it's a great preview, but nothing beats the act of actually being physically present with the art experience. And I love how it's interactive. I think it's really important.
Yeah, and guess what? Maybe they'll get inspired to write a small poem about,
yes,
who knows, the environment. There are so many women's issues, politics. There are a lot of different themes that I touch upon.
Definitely. There is another question popped up here, and maybe one you could help me with about the hours for the gallery. Another question here is asking about what is your favorite type of art, and then here it says art created by trauma or art created by good memories. From your experience, which power of art has affected you the most?
One of the things I think that the life of the artist is evolution. So nowadays I am very intrigued by the abstract art, because what I showed you, the painting with yarn, that is something that I realized my brain can get very focused, and I think right now I'm there at the power of the abstraction, no? That how much can you abstract your own thoughts? But wait, and what was the first question? The hours. That is something that if they write, okay.
Yeah, there's an email. One put it in the email.
Oh, but if they want me to be here, they can DM me through Instagram. I'll be more than happy to be here, because I think, yes, I'm enthusiastic about sharing my art, but I'm enthusiastic about getting people to really know more about what fiber art is and the potential that fiber art has on everything. Our logo in Infama is the advancement of the education and the advancement of the fiber arts as a contemporary art form. So there you can understand a little bit more, that I could talk forever if you allow me about fiber art.
Evelyn, this has been great. The students, if we could give like a digital round of applause, through the chat. Evelyn, the art's inspiring. We thank you. I'm hoping they get to come out there, and maybe they'll email about meeting up so you could talk to them, like face to face, about their art. But again, inspiring. Thank you. It's always great to hear from artists and how you all are creating. The chat now is loaded with applause in the chat room. So.
Thank you very much. Thank you for listening and for your interest also. Bye. Thank you again.
Take care. Thank you. You take care.